I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm excited to share with you the speaker portion of our Connections After Hours gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. I have a treat for you tonight as I've assembled a panel of brilliant entrepreneurs who are sharing the best business advice they've received and how they've used it. So welcome Dr. Carla Johnston, Sandra Lee, and Joanne Young Elliott. Thank you for saying yes and for being here with me tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing what you all have to say. I'm going to start with you, Carla. Would you just take a moment and tell us a little bit about you? This is for the benefit of the people watching the video, your business name and what you offer.
Sure. So I have a practice, Dr. Carla Johnston. I have a doctorate in clinical nutrition. I'm also a certified health coach. I have a membership group for women who are 60 and older, and I focus on health, overall health. And I look through the lens of functional nutrition and also life experiences and how that impacts our health. And I do that through one-on-one coaching. And then, as I also mentioned, I have a nationwide virtual program.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Sandra.
I am Sandra Lee and have been doing healing work forever. But really, what I love doing is I help people get connected to and conscious of their purpose and the way they serve. And when you're in alignment with your purpose, you're going to be more successful in your business. You're going to attract more of the opportunities that you really want, and you'll be more satisfied with what you're doing. And there's a variety of healing techniques and human design that I use to do those.
Thank you, Sandra. And for those of you watching this live right now, I'm going to have the websites of these three women on later because, Zoom only lets you put in so many characters at a time. And if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, the websites are all listed for these women. So you'll hear their brilliance and you'll probably want to reach out and connect with them. Joanne, how about you?
Hi, I'm Joanne Young Elliott, and I'm a life coach and a spiritual guide. I'm trained in the science of mind philosophy, and I like to help women, neurodiverse women usually, make space in their lives and minds for what matters most to them, so they can reach their most meaningful goals and really create the life that is true, being true to themselves and true to their dreams.
Thank you, Joanne. And when I invited you three ladies to be part of this panel tonight, I told you the topic and I said, come up with, a couple of answers ahead of time. So I'm going to start with, let's see, I'm going to start with you, Sandra. So what's the best piece of business advice you've received and how have you used it?
I find that this is business advice that I receive over and over and over again because even I, with conscious awareness of it, still tend to fall off. And it is with whatever it is I'm doing in my business, does it fit me?
Mm.
I've taken programs that are trying to get me to do something that I hate, or I resist, or I don't want to do that. And still, I find myself trying to push myself into that following what I should do, what the expert says box. And, over and over and over again, I have somebody I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm trying to do something that doesn't fit me. So that's part of why I love helping other people be able to make that adjustment themselves. I know I'm too close to my own stuff to be able to see it clearly. And so I need somebody else's input to help me see what I'm doing and make my adjustments. And so being a person that helps other people with that is something I love doing.
Well, Sandra, that is really perfect advice. And put in the chat if anybody here can relate to doing things or trying to do things or starting things and not finishing things and realizing I don't like to do these things. They're not me. They're not me, yet we're forcing ourselves because somebody we thought was smarter than us told us that we should, right? And there's no one size fits all for anything in the business world, really. We have to all find our own place. That's great. Thank you so much.
There is actually something else about that.
Yeah.
So sometimes what it is I'm resisting is good for me to do. And there's healing that I can do that enables me to be more in alignment with it. So sometimes it's flat out, you know what, I'm just not supposed to do that. And sometimes there's things I'm putting in the way that the healing of that enables me to be more in alignment with it.
Yeah, so it takes some introspection to see which is which, or getting some help from someone else. Yeah. Joanne, what do you have? Oh, and before
Oh.
you start, Joanne, I just want to let everybody know that if you want to piggyback on anything or respond to something another panelist has said, you can do that first and then go into your own thing. So Joanne, go ahead.
Well, I just like to mention like what Sandra said about, having to fit you is like really important, whatever you're doing, I think. So my best advice that I have received was from a sales coach that I work with. And it's just get out there and meet people and tell them what you do and tell them how you help people. Just do it. You can't create a business without people. So I'm an introvert. I am shy. And so that was kind of like, that's not something I really want to do. But what was the other piece of advice in that is find a way to do it that works for you. And that's what my sales coach said. She said, like, don't use what I say against yourself, saying you have to do it a certain way. Find a way to do it in a way that works for you. And so I have. I have done things like find a group like this. I mean, the On Purpose Woman group is amazing. It's, supportive, friendly, like-minded people. And that makes all the difference in making those connections. And also, I've implemented this advice by making an effort to just talk to people out in the world. Not to sell to them, but just to make connections and practice connecting. And the other thing I've been trying to do is to make it fun. And because no one wants to do anything that's not fun, right? So that's what the advice I've been given and how I've been using it.
Joanne, can you share one way that you've made it fun?
It's really a mindset thing. It's sort of like, well, what can I say? Like in a store, like a clerk is having a busy day, and you can see, like, I'll look at, like, one clerk had something about I'm a new grandma on her name tag, and so I asked her about, how old's your grandchild, and we had a little discussion about that, and they lit up, and so that was fun just to see people light up and really connect with them.
So you're the shy introvert, you're out there practicing in the real world. So it's not about necessarily connecting with the client, it's connecting, period, and getting comfortable with asking questions and seeing people and having a dialogue.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And sometimes, a client may come out of it somewhere down the road in multiple connections, but unless you make connections, nothing's going to happen.
That is very true. Carla.
Wow, great. I'm very happy to be in this company of both Sandra and Joanne, because that has been my experience as well. I'll share, I've been in sales, as Joanne mentioned, many, many years. I say hundreds of years ago, I started in sales. And one of the things that we learned very quickly was the PO method. And you'll see me roll my eyes when I say that, because boy, did we get sick of hearing about PO. Plan, organize, execute. And I thought, how do I make that mine? Because that's just not working for me. And how do I measure what I'm doing? As Joanne said, you have to get out there and meet people. You have to move the marker at some way. And how do I measure that? And I thought, oh, so instead of poem, now instead of it's poem. Plan, organize, execute, and measure. Like, okay, now I can do that. And what it led to was these amazing discussions with other women who were having business. And the other piece of advice that was given to me that I still carry with me when I started my business was, when you have your own business, you're not getting paid for what your activities are like you do when you're an employee. You get paid for what you conclude or close or accomplish whatever that business is for you. So if you're a painter, you don't get paid obviously until your painting is sold. So the sustainability of your business is based on results and not activity. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a sales mind shift. And then how do I put sales mind shift with a service mind shift? And how do I marry those two things? And that I continue to work on through these types of meetings and other very brilliant women and figure out what they do. And if that works for me, as Sandra said, many brilliant women are doing these amazing things. And that's just either not my style or not the way I would do things, or they have a different way of doing it that matches their personality. And that's where the learning for me continues. What works for me and how do I build on that? And then take the brilliance of other people and adapt it to what makes sense for me.
Wow, great stuff, y'all. I love how you each played onto the other. That's what happens when you get brilliant minds together. Sandra, you have another one for us?
Now I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit more specific to what I do. I do human design, which is based on where the planets were at the time I was born. And it's amazing how much a blueprint like that, I call it a blueprint, says about my life and my business. This is a chart that tells me all these qualities about myself or about my client, if I'm working with a client, and how that client lives in all areas of their life, including their business. So if you are an entrepreneur, your business and you are very much the same energy. And so when you understand about your chart, it helps you understand the qualities, the themes in your business. So for example, the strongest energy in my chart is about truth and integrity and the absence of truth and integrity. And so I'm always trying to make things better for myself, my health, my house, my client, their life, their health, and help them have more truth in their experience. So I love following the guide of the planets in understanding what people want to do, what they're good at, what the strengths are, and how they can optimize that.
Thank you. Joanne.
Another piece of advice is evaluate. Something I know is really good to do because it really does help you learn quicker. Creates a better business, a better atmosphere for me to work in once I've learned. So basically, like, evaluating can be, like, say you have a sales call. So afterwards you evaluate how it went. You evaluate, did it go well? How, or what well, here, let's just put it this way. Someone told me you should start with what was good first, because otherwise you start with what's wrong, you don't really care what went well. So start with what went well first, and then look at what didn't work, and then figure out what you want to do next time, make it better. And that's not something I always did, mostly because it's like, oh, I'm done this thing, on to the next thing. So I've learned to stop and evaluate, just for even just self-awareness reasons. But it really does help you learn much faster. So, like, you'll get better at the sales call faster. You'll get better at the client session faster. And you could evaluate anything in your business or your life, for that matter, and it will make a difference.
It requires a certain degree of self-honesty, doesn't it? Yeah. And not really, like, what isn't. No, what is. And so we can often kind of either gloss over something and think we and act as though we did better than we did, or we can think that we did worse than we did. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
When we evaluate, might actually be surprised, like, wow, that turned out better than I thought. But you could be beating yourself up because it didn't meet your expectations. So that's a wonderful piece of advice.
And it's really important to come at it from a place of curiosity and not judgment.
Mhm. Yes, curiosity. We could always stay in curiosity. That is so much more fulfilling and forward moving than just judgment, isn't it? Yeah, negative
we-
judgments.
Yeah, we learn better that way.
Sure do. We sure do. And we're much more pleasant to be around. Okay, Carla, what would you like to
Oh
add?
boy, I love that. I'm all about curiosity. I'm going to share this in a different way because following these two ladies is just amazing. And I'm like, oh boy, how do I add to that? To be open to how information comes in, that it may not be advice, the observation may serve as advice. And here's what I mean by that. So when I started my business, I got all excited and I had my business plan and I put a website together and all of this. I'm learning social media as we go, and I was all excited. And someone that I really respect said, what's interesting to me, Carla, is that when you talk about working with clients in your group and one-on-one, it's about them and what they are going to be doing and how you're partnering with them and mentoring them. You are not the guider, you're really the observer, the listener. And yet, when I read your website and your business plan, it's all about what you're doing and how you're going to do something. And I sat back and thought about that. I thought, oh, wow, because that's how I was taught. This is what I have to offer, and hopefully this matches. And now, and I'm working on that continuously. What is it that I'm called to do that someone will receive if we partner up together? And just as importantly, if it's not me, do I know someone else that I might be able to refer them to? Because one of the things that I learned early on in sales is it's not dividing up a pie because it's infinite. There's enough for everyone. So there might be 50 people doing what I'm doing in a room, and there are going to be 50 different voices that are going to have someone's ear in a different way. And so that's what brings our genius and our uniqueness. So that I'm putting as advice, even though it was intended to be advice, they really were curious. And boy, that still sticks with me to this day. When I put things together, what is it that I want to say that I can do that someone will receive rather than what it is that I'm going to do? That was huge for me.
Can you make another distinction there? Because I think you just said, what is it that I can do kind of versus what it is that I'm going to do? Can you make a bigger, greater distinction there between the two things? Because I might have missed something.
Yeah. So there is, so what I can do is be an excellent listener. And what I can do is to decide if I can be of assistance. And what I can do is figure out, based on the conversation, where things might go. What I know I am shifting on is that if someone's looking for something specific, if it's not what I want to do with them, or I feel like someone would be better suited to do that with this person, then I can move them on. So
Okay.
I think in my mind, that's how I make the distinction.
Okay. So it's clear on what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Which is such an important, because how many here, and put it in the chat, and brave panelists, raise your hand or nod your head. How many of you in the beginning of whatever it was you started thought everybody's a client, just give me some money, everybody. I'll work with anybody, right? And probably you found that not everybody is a client, and you wasted a lot of time sometimes with people, or they were difficult, or you didn't vet them in some way, because we get a little hungry there in the beginning, don't we? Wants to make things happen. And so everybody isn't a client, but I believe the clearer that I got on why I was doing this and who I was doing it for, then I started to attract more of those people and more of the kind of people that I actually wanted to work with. Because and that comes down to something that I talked about. Actually, I did I did a panel today for the talk show with 3 other brilliant women. We talked about purpose. We just talked about purpose. And one of the things we talked about is we have to know who we are. We have to know who we are as a human, as a business owner, as a woman, what floats our boat, what brings us joy, what makes us want to be out there in the world, what gifts do we have to share, how do we want to share them? Because if we are doing it from this other place of, I just want to get some money, or I just want to get a client, then the real me is not showing up. And you know what happens when the real you doesn't show up? You attract a client who wants the fake you. And then when you start being the real you, because we will all be the real you eventually, won't we? They are not going to be happy with that. And you're going to have to twist yourself into knots to actually keep them happy. I don't know if that was just my experience or anybody else had that experience. I see some heads nodding. Yes, Carla, and
Actually,
then
yeah,
oh, you're
I,
just doing this. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And that's, I want to add to that, at least from my perspective. To start clunky or to start wonky, just start, because we don't have to have it all. As you mentioned, like if you are searching for that person, the more you get to work with people, you're like, oh, I seem to be resonating with this group.
Mhm.
Or to your point, Ginny, this is really not what I was thinking it was, and I'm going to pull back and redo it, because I do, and I only work with people and I gravitate toward people that are authentic. And that's why I have a huge referral network, because we all do different things differently and uniquely and brilliantly. And so sometimes it's starting out where you are, and then it will evolve as it goes with the evaluation, as Sandra and Joanne had pointed out, with self-reflection, with what you're bringing your brilliance to, and also what feels good. If it feels icky, then you're, as you mentioned, you already know you're on the wrong track.
Right.
But
right.
really great point.
Yeah. Did Sandra, Joanne, did you have your hands up to say something or just agreeing with me? But both.
Say something. You
Okay.
know, what we were talking about trying to please everybody or trying to market to everybody, I think this also contributes to the difficulties so many people have in describing what they do and getting clear about the benefits that they provide and who they serve. So many people struggle with being clear. I mean, again, this has been me too. So over and over and over again, redefining it, trying to figure out who am I and what is it I'm offering, and how do I speak about it? And if we can't speak about what we do clearly and compellingly, nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
0 sales. Joanne, did you want to add anything to this conversation?
I guess something someone said just made me think of like know where to start, but also like don't quit. You can take a break, you can step back, but never quit if that's what you really want. I mean, sometimes you get into something that's not for you and you didn't know that until you got into it, and that's fine. But like here I am 10 years later, I've done various things. But I always wanted to work for myself, and you create things that will help people. So I just never quit. I mean, whatever I was doing, I'm still here, and I am still learning and growing, and keep going.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you don't shift and change some things that you're doing. See, that's the thing. If we start doing something, we don't have to do it that way forever. We can change it anytime we want. But if you know that you really have something to offer and you really want to be of service and you really want to be self-employed, then you just keep going and you keep trying different things. And great advice, everyone. I'm going to tell a quick story that I don't know if any of you here know. It was my very first On Purpose Woman Global Community meeting. It was then called On Purpose Networking for Women. You can go on my website and read why I started this organization. This was 24 years ago in March that I started this organization. And my very first meeting was at this space that a friend of mine had. She was a massage therapist, and it was the Baltimore School of Massage. And we took tablecloths and put them on the massage tables, and we had food. We had like a buffet, and about, I think, 60 or 70 women came to that very first event. Some of them came just because they wanted to support me. They didn't have businesses. I didn't know who would show up. I was there for anybody. You didn't have to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know I was doing this for entrepreneurs yet. I'm just doing a networking group. And so there were a lot of women there. And I had a booth at the women's show, the Baltimore Women's Show, a few weeks before. And these 2 women came up to me, and they had gotten one of my cards there and a flyer that I had. And this one woman she was angry. And she said, "Your flyer says buffet. This is not a buffet. It's an appetizer table. And for $20, I want meat. She said that, and she said it really loud. And I kind of looked around, and it's like the room stopped, all the buzzing. It was a huge energy thing going on, great stuff. And like everybody, I don't think that everybody stopped, but it felt like it. And they all were watching to see, I think, what's going on. And I'm thinking, I'm going to handle this in front of this room. I have to handle this in front of this room. And I was like, I was devastated. And then she tells me that her friend is unemployed and that she really didn't have $20 to come and blah, 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 blah. And she was nasty. And I said, I'm really sorry. I said, but I'm a vegetarian, so there will never be meat here if that's really a requirement that you have. I said, but tell you what, why don't I refund you and your friend's money? And then you can just, all you've really lost tonight is the time that you've spent here. I'm happy to do that. And she just said no. And she just walked off and sat down. And I'd also heard her asking somebody, because as I was shopping for the food, because I did it all back in the day, I had put some like diet sodas and stuff. And I thought, I don't want to serve this crap. And I had gotten like good juice, name brand stuff. And I heard her ask somebody, where can I get something real to drink? And so she went out into the school and got a soda out of the soda machine. And so this woman was like my nemesis for the night. So I'm speaking that night because it's my first meeting, and I'm speaking on, guess what? I'm speaking on authenticity. And this woman is sitting about as close as I am to my computer screen. And she sat with her arms folded, like daring me to speak. And I am just a mess. I am just a mess, trying to be authentic and not cry. I mean, I was a mess because this was so exciting for me, but it was just, I thought everybody hates it, how we can spiral down and we make up stories. And I got through it. I think I did okay. And she left, they never came back. And I was working with a business coach at the time who had joined the community. She couldn't be there that night. Had a session with her the next morning. I told her what happened. And here's what she said to me. This ties into what you all were talking about. She says, Ginny, you have some big plans. You're going to, you're going to do a lot of stuff. And if you can't handle somebody criticizing the food at one of your events, how are you ever going to handle them criticizing who they think you are? Now, 24 years later, I remember word for word what she said to me because she was so right. I had no idea who I was at that time or what I was offering. I just did it. And it worked out eventually, but I just did it. So I took it all personally. I failed somehow. And other people were coming over. People loved it. And what I also realized in that moment, I had lost touch with all the great stuff happening in the room and let that one person or those two people have all my good energy, and they set the tone for me, which I will tell you that I never let that happen again after that, because that was such a lesson. But this idea, and you've all probably had the experience of people telling you who they think you are. Maybe not directly, but it might get back to you that they said it right or something like that. So the more we can really be clear, not just who we are, but who we are in this work and why we do it and who we do it for, we can then stand up and be strong and hold our own when those things hit, because stuff will hit. Not everybody's going to love us, and that's okay. We can't support everybody. We don't have the bandwidth to have all those people. So not everybody's going to be our client. So thank you for listening to that. I haven't told that story in a very long time. So I'd like to have one final couple of sentences from each of you, and then we're going to take a couple of questions before we wrap up here. So Sandra, would you please go first?
Just allow yourself to be yourself. Just shine who you are. And, according to human design, when you're living your truth, that's when you attract your opportunities and your people.
Thank you. Carla, I'm going to have you go second since you've been one last every time. So
I would say surround yourself, and it kind of alludes to what we've all spoken about, and it certainly mirrors your story, Ginny, and that's to surround yourself with people that you trust, so that when you feel a little bit unsteady, you can check in, and as Joanne said, just never give up. And that's easier to do when you have a group and a community that are supporting you.
sure is. Joanne.
Just get started like you did, Ginny. Just start. I mean, if you never start, you don't have any information. Even if you don't know everything yet, you'll get information as you start. And as you do something, then you'll get the next step. So Just start.
What's that saying? Build the plane as you're flying it, something like that, I think. Yeah. And it's either that or try to get everything perfect and never start. That's really what it is. I have to have the perfect website. I have to have all this stuff lined up. No, you don't. You just have to take a step and do something.
Well, because you don't have enough information until you do.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly. So thank you, brilliant women. I really appreciate you saying yes to this and being with me tonight. And I want to ask the people who are here on Zoom with us, a couple of people had to go, but turn off your mute, unmute yourselves. And I'd love to just have you give some applause to our panel. You can applaud each other and yourselves as well. So unmute yourselves, y'all, and let's give some woohoo.
Woohoo, woohoo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to thank anyone who's watching this live or watching the replay on our YouTube channel. Please check out all the other women on our channel who share their gifts, their wisdom, and their expertise to inspire you to move forward, whether it's with your business or with your personal life. If you want to join us for one of our Zoom or in-person gatherings, you can go to my website, OPWGC.com, where you can find all about our community and the magazine. And that link is in the text of this video, as are the links of all of our brilliant panelists tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.